I'm Vrinda Loiwal. During the lockdown, our lifestyles have been disrupted, but one thing that does not need to be disrupted is learning. Join me for my 7-part series on this with fomonomore. See you there.
All right. Hi, everyone. My name is Vrinda Loiwal, and I'm from India. I run a company called the Center for Social Emotional Learning, and it is my pleasure to join all of you tonight. It's a Sunday night. So those of you who are here, I welcome you to this half an hour with me. I hope everyone's had a good weekend, and today we're going to talk about a very, very interesting topic. And I'm going to begin by asking you, those of you who are parents, what is it that you want most for your children? So if you could use, say, adjectives to describe what kind of a life do you want your children to have, what would your answer be? And I'm going to let you guys put in your answers in the comments section. But to start with, one thing that I have heard from other parents whenever they've answered this question is they want their children to be confident, they want them to be capable and skilled, they want them to be resilient so that whenever there is a failure or a setback that the child suffers in their life, they're able to get back up. They want their children to be caring, and they want their children to always retain the enthusiasm that the child had at the age of 2. So the enthusiasm and vitality and I can do anything I want attitude. So if you look at these 5 adjectives that we use, right? Confident, capable, resilient, caring, and enthusiastic. These are some beautiful things to be. But how much of our school life prepares us to be these things? We have another comment here from a parent who says that she would love her children to be happy and content. Beautiful. What you want most as a parent is that your child is happy. And a large part of happiness is that the child is continually able to take new challenges in their lives and be able to be resilient through the setbacks that they suffer and bounce back up with the same energy, same enthusiasm anytime they fail. So thank you for sharing that. And how much of schooling does really prepare children to be these things? Not much. If you look at a school day, typically it starts with a morning assembly in most parts of the world where children learn to obey, how to stand in a line and how to follow certain instructions, and that's discipline. That's important. But through the day, you see they go to math class, they go to science class, they go to English class. They learn a lot of cognitive skills there. They learn how to think on all of these topics. But when in the school day do they ever get to talk about how do I deal with failure? Or how do I be more caring? How do I express my love? How do I deal with this really negative emotion that I'm having? When I'm frustrated, how do I deal with that frustration in a constructive manner? Is there any time in the school day that we actually give to learning these skills? No. And as adults, we know that so much of our life, beyond school, beyond work, even at work, even at home, so much of our life is actually, based on how well we are able to deal with these situations. So this really, begs a huge question. There's this huge gaping hole in our education system, and nobody's addressing it. Let's look at, globally, is there an impact of this reality? Like, does it actually hamper or hinder the way children grow up? So Let's look at adolescents. Adolescents are aged 13 to 18, and worldwide, the third leading cause of death in adolescence is suicide. And depression is one of the leading causes of illness and disability in adolescence. And by illness, we mean that the child is not healthy, and by disability, we mean that the child actively is unable to participate in regular regular life because of certain issues, and the issues are depression. Now, how has this come to be? Is it that this depression is a 21st century problem? Is it that it's happening more now than it used to? Yes and no. We know about it much more today, so we are more aware of it, and more people are trying to seek help for it. Because basically, in the deficit-focused society that we live in, where we're able to spot people's weaknesses before their strengths, and we're able to spot what a child is not able to do better than what they are able to do. And our whole focus is on socially ranking children right from childhood. In first standard, we begin ranking children for how well they're doing academically, how well they're growing socially, even how even like their height and weight. We begin ranking right from childhood. So in this society where all we're focused on is social ranking, we tend to focus on the deficits of the child. We tend to do everything we can to either make sure that that deficit is covered or hidden. And what happens in the child's brain while he or she is going through such an experience is that somewhere they start to make a meaning about their worthiness. Am I worth belonging? Am I worth love? Am I worth anything? Am I worthy in my peer circle, in my family, in my school? And often the meanings that get made when a child fails a math test is not just that, okay, I failed this math test. It becomes, I'm never going to be good at math. I'm not good enough. Or when a child doesn't get picked on a sports team, often it gets internalized as, I'm not athletic enough. I'm never going to be athletic enough. Sometimes it gets internalized in pervasive ways. I'm not good at sports. Probably I'm not going to be good at anything competitive. Now, as human beings, our brain is designed to make these meanings. And this happens right from childhood, and we do it as adults too. But what we don't realize is that when we make these meanings, they have a profound impact on our thinking, our feeling, our behaving, and our engaging with challenges in the world. So if I'm not good at sports, it probably means I'm not good at anything competitive, which probably means that in the future, I shouldn't even try. And so right from childhood, we see children making these decisions about themselves, about their place in the world, that determine their effort, their motivation, their ability to take challenges for the rest of their lives. And yet, we don't address this in our school systems. We don't talk about this in our families. And to me, this is a big problem. This means that there is this whole vast portion of growing up as a child that is just neglected. It's just ignored, like we're blind to it. And it is the most important portion of how a child is able to or not able to deal with future challenges and failures, whether they are in academics or in their relationships. So, this brings us to the point of what can be done? If the situation is so bleak, is there really anything that can be done? And the good news is that there is a lot that can be done. So the field of social and emotional learning has emerged as a response to this situation. Scientists, psychologists, educators all over the world, researchers all over the world have put in 30, 40 years of research into, can we prevent children from making these catastrophic meanings about their lives? And can we actually preemptively give children the skills to deal with life? And we can call them life skills, we can call them 21st century skills, we can call them social emotional skills. You might have heard these terms being used at different schools or different newspapers. But basically, can we help children be resilient when they fail? Can we help them be confident and advocate for themselves? Can we help them stand up for themselves when they've been wronged? Can we help them be more caring and express that in appropriate ways? And yes, we can do all of those things. The field of social emotional learning aims to do exactly that in a preventative manner, such that we don't have to wait for mental illness to occur and then we start, going to the doctor and getting medication for our kids. But actually, just like we teach math right from kindergarten, we teach children how to count. How about we begin teaching children how to be resilient? And it can be done. It can be done right from age 4. So this is the amazing good news that I have. And we at the Center for Social Emotional Learning, in fact, endeavor to mainstream learning processes in schools and in families that build these social skills of empathy, compassion, being able to stand up for what's right, and the emotional skills of recognizing, how am I feeling right now? And managing tough emotions like frustration, anger, panic, understanding where those emotions are coming from and be able to manage them and regulate them in a way that is appropriate to the situation, so that lesser children feel the need to be aggressive when they're actually feeling hurt inside, and fewer children feel the need to be violent when they're actually experiencing a tough emotion inside. So how do we do it? And why do we do it? So we've talked a little bit about the need gap, but really, what does the research say? What are the benefits of doing these programs? So as you can imagine, personal relationships become a lot better for children when they are equipped with these skills. As you can also imagine, academically and professionally, they are able to focus more, they're able to embrace challenges more, they're able to connect their sense of purpose with the work they're doing, and that leads to better professional outcomes and increased enthusiasm for learning, whether it is, an extracurricular activity. You'll find that children who are able to generate enthusiasm and a fondness for learning will also embrace new hobbies, new things to do in the world. And of course, there will be fewer conduct problems, lesser emotional distress. And who wouldn't want that? Like, all of us during the lockdown have experienced so much distress, and we've come face to face with some really tough emotions, and we haven't had the opportunity to distract ourselves from these tough emotions like we would in ordinary life. In the lockdown, we've come face to face with these emotions, and we've had to really deal with them. So we know what emotional distress feels like. And imagine if as adults we still struggle with our emotional distress. As children, how much more it would be impacting them. So if all of this is possible through SEL, then okay, show me how. How do we do this? There are lots and lots of programs that exist that teach social and emotional skills right from the age of 3 and 4. And they can be done at school, they can be done at home. Parenting is a huge, huge role to play in the social and emotional skills that children develop. I'm going to pause here for just a minute and see if there are any questions or comments. All right, so coming back to how do we make social emotional learning a reality in schools? There are 4 main ways to make this a reality in our schools. Number 1, to explicitly teach these skills in a classroom, just like we teach math. Why not we have a social emotional learning class? This is where they can learn about things like emotion literacy. What is emotion literacy? Well, just as literacy means the ability to read and write in any language, emotion literacy is the ability to read, understand, manage, and recognize emotion in yourself and in other people. And it begins with being able to name your emotions. So I've been an SEL teacher in a classroom with 6th and 7th graders, and one of the first exercises we did was we talked about how are we feeling, and there are no answers like I'm feeling okay, or I'm feeling good, or I'm feeling busy, because those aren't actually feeling words. Feeling words, emotion literacy looks like I'm feeling satisfied, I'm feeling content, I'm feeling happy, I'm feeling elated, I'm feeling sad, I'm feeling disappointed, I'm feeling upset, I'm feeling remorseful, I'm feeling angry, I'm feeling agitated, I'm feeling restless, I'm feeling confused, I'm feeling disgusted. Um, I'm feeling shocked. I'm feeling scared. I'm feeling surprised. I'm feeling demotivated. These are all feeling words. And with children, we need to start talking in these words. We need to start using these terminologies to get them to understand that, number 1, all of these emotions are normal. All of them are valid. They're completely valid to feel. And number 2, if we can name them, we can better deal with them. Because if I know that there's a difference between being disappointed, disappointment comes from unmet expectations. And anger, anger usually comes from a sense of perceived injustice. Like something was unfair. My brother got a treat, I didn't get a treat. I think it's unfair. I feel that it's unjust. I might be angry at that time. Whereas disappointment might come from unmet expectations, like I was really hoping that we would go to the park today because you promised that we would go to the park today. And now we're not getting to go. Disappointment comes from that expectation that was not met. It's very different from anger. But if we don't have the terminology that disappointment and anger are 2 separate emotions, it's very hard to understand where they're coming from. And so it's even harder to manage them. When I know as a child that I'm feeling angry right now and what I'm seeking is justice, then I can talk about it or express it in that appropriate way. Versus when I know that I'm feeling disappointed, then I would express it in a different way. So I would say emotion literacy, for example, is something that absolutely needs to be taught right from a young age. And it needs to be taught explicitly, just like you teach children how to count. That is how clearly it needs to be taught. And we have grown-ups, adults who struggle to articulate how they're feeling in moments of stress. And And we know how these situations can spiral out of control when we don't know how we're feeling. We act out, we throw things, we get aggressive, we say things we don't mean to people we really, really love, or we say things we don't mean to people in at our workplace. And there's just a snowball effect of the damage that happens when we're simply not able to articulate and manage our emotions. So, number one, teach these skills explicitly. Number two, integrate these skills into the teaching of all curricula. So, when you're teaching math is such a perfect classroom to integrate a teaching of growth mindset on. What is growth mindset? That even if you fail, you believe that you can grow if you put in the right effort, try a number of strategies, and seek support. The belief that you can grow despite making mistakes. And math is where children make a lot of mistakes. All of us do while we're learning. So why not in a math class, when a child makes a mistake, instead of saying, oh, you got a D grade on this, you don't got this yet, why not a teacher say, you know what? You haven't got this yet. It doesn't mean you're a failure. It just means you haven't gotten it yet. The very language that we use when we're addressing mistakes makes a huge difference in how the child internalizes their ability to grow in that subject. Why not in history or in English, when children are learning about different characters and different stories that have played out, children learn to take perspectives. What if instead of my history exam asking me how many people died in this Battle of Plassey in this year, what if the history exam asked, who were the two parties in the Battle of Plassey and what were their perspectives? What was the conflict that they couldn't resolve? Why were they unable to resolve it? Did they try resolving it? This could be an exercise in perspective taking. This could be an exercise in what are different conflict resolution strategies that they could have used before going to war. Similarly, for English, we read stories, we read novels, and they're so rich with characters. How about we put ourselves in the shoes of Harry Potter, and we say, well, if I was Harry in this situation, what would I do? Literature is a great place to begin to integrate some of these social and emotional skills. The third strategy I have for implementing SEL in schools is the school culture. What is the school culture? The school culture is what we celebrate in school. So, for example, in the morning assembly at school, what gets celebrated and what gets punished? Very simple examples, right? Usually, if you went to a school like mine, probably the person who got celebrated and recognized and applauded in a morning assembly was someone who came first in class, or they won some award for doing something the fastest or doing it in the most accurate way. What if instead schools could also celebrate in that same morning assembly that yes, this person stood first and they got this answer accurately, super, but also these are other people who persevered the most each time they failed. They have shown the most perseverance. These are people who made sure that their classmate was not left behind when the classmate was struggling. They showed kindness. What if we could celebrate these things in our morning assembly as well? That would change the culture of the school. That would tell children that, in our school, we not only value accuracy and how speedily you solve a problem, but we also value kindness and we value perseverance. These little tweaks in how we, what we celebrate and the corollary is what we punish, make a huge difference. So for the most part, someone who fails is really punished. He's punished at home, he's punished at school. And punishment can look like a lot of things. It can be physical punishment, but most often it's emotional punishment. It is saying, I'm disappointed in you. It is saying, you're not good enough. It is saying, maybe you should just drop out of this subject because you're never going to be able to do it. It is saying, your sister can do it, why can't you? All of these are forms of punishment that get internalized by the child, and they're really not helping the child grow. If anything, they're reinforcing the negative self-talk that children develop about themselves. So school culture and also our family cultures is a huge part of how we can implement SEL. And the fourth strategy really is in the family-school partnerships. What is the family-school partnership? Well, the child goes to school for maybe 6 hours a day, and the child is at home for the remaining 18 hours of the day. We can teach all of these amazing things at home, but the same things have to be reinforced at home as well. I'm sorry, we can teach whatever we want at school, but if they're not reinforced at home, they're not likely to be to become behavioral habits. So if we are teaching children at school that it's okay to make a mistake, try again, try a different strategy, don't give up, persevere, ask for support. If this is what we're teaching in school, then at home, this needs to be reinforced as well. We can't have children learning that it's okay to make mistakes and try again at school and have their home tell them that you're not good enough or shame on you for asking for help on such a simple topic. Like, those are just mixed messages, contradictory messages, and it will not work. It will just not work. So the school and home partnership is super, super important in children learning these skills. I'm going to pause here. I see that a few new people have joined. Welcome to fomonomore. Please subscribe to this page if you're enjoying our conversations, and absolutely do share your thoughts on our discussion today. We're discussing how do we make sure that our education and our home systems help children in becoming more confident, capable, resilient, caring, and enthusiastic. All right, so we have a question here from someone here who's talking about, doesn't disappointment lead to anger? That's a great question. So anger is one of the most socially acceptable emotions, and you just have to look around yourself to see that as a society, we are okay with people yelling. We're okay with people throwing things. We've even seen people hitting other people. So as a society, we're exposed to people showing anger. What we're not exposed to is people showing or expressing the feelings that lie behind that anger. It could be shame. It could be guilt. It could be disappointment, like you said. It could be feeling hurt. And we just don't have ways that we've agreed on socially how to express those emotions. And we clearly don't have the vocabulary to express that this is how I'm feeling right now. So in the absence of the vocabulary, as well as in the absence of any behaviors modeling how to show these emotions, what do we resort to? We resort to anger. It's the easiest, it's what we've seen, It's what gets noticed. And we might not be doing it consciously, but what will come out is an angry outburst. So I completely hear you when I, when you say that doesn't disappointment lead to anger? It can, because that's how we know how to express disappointment. It's a pity that we don't know how to express disappointment as disappointment. We have a comment here that says, this is the case for adults too. The language and tone used changes the direction of thinking. Absolutely. I couldn't agree more. You know, everything that we do, emotionally speaking, if we're not equipped as children, it's very hard to be equipped as adults because we've grown up with the habit of expressing in whatever tone or language we've grown up with. And it is hard as adults to change. So, that is assuming that we want to change and we want to become emotionally literate and we want to get better at managing our relationships. So many of us don't even see it as a need because our society doesn't always make it as important or urgent a need as we do for other things. We have a question here. As we generally reward children in doing well at school, how should parents deal with children when they don't perform well? This is such a beautiful question. Thank you so much for asking it. I think it is very crucial, very, very crucial to pay attention as a parent. Pay more attention to how you respond to children when they don't perform well. Around age 4 or 5 is when children begin to learn the emotion of shame. When they begin to learn that there are some things that they do that they should not do. And if they do those, then there's something to be ashamed about. A 1-year-old child does not have shame. So you see a 1-year-old child being completely carefree, right? A 1-year-old child is also one that's trying to walk, right? They'll try, they'll walk, they'll fall a million times, they'll get back up. Because they have not yet learned shame. Now, compare that with a 4, 5-year-old child and you begin to see some signs of shame. Compare that to a 13-year-old, you would see lots of shame. And shame, again, is one of those emotions that doesn't, that doesn't show up as, I'm feeling shame right now. It shows up as really, really different things. And going back to the question, like when a child doesn't perform well, there's a 90% chance that the child knows they haven't performed well and they're already dealing with a bit of shame. They're already feeling not good about themselves. And they're already feeling unworthy. So when your child does not perform well, please consider taking a deep breath, first and foremost. Do not use that first moment to explode. No matter how much you want to explode, don't do it. Take a deep breath. Secondly, ask them how they're feeling. Ask them, how are you? I know that as a child, if I had heard the question, how are you, more often, I would have learned better to deal with my shame when I didn't perform well. Instead, I used to go to the bathroom and cry when I didn't perform well. I didn't even want people to see that I was so upset. That is the amount of shame I had. So just ask them how they're doing. Make them feel heard. Make them feel like you've got their back. And thirdly, keep the bar high. So as a parent, what you have to do is the twin task of being the support for your child, making sure that they know they can come to you with anything they want to say, anything they want to communicate. They can share their feelings with you, and keeping the bar high. Yes, I see you, I hear you, I get that you're disappointed, you have not performed well. And let's aim to still be here. What support do you need to be here? If we can just ask our children, what support do you need at the times that they don't perform well, I think that's going to make a huge difference. We have a comment here that says, SEL tends to get sidelined, especially in middle and high school. I would love to hear some examples of simple and effective strategies which teachers can use to integrate social emotional learning in their content, math, science, history. Wow, actually we did just cover this, but I'm happy to share this again. So a couple of quick strategies that teachers can use to integrate SEL right in their content are in math, when children make mistakes, let them make mistakes. Tell them, good job, you tried, you made a mistake. What do you want to do now? Do you want to try this with a new strategy? Do you want to ask for support? How are you going to persevere? Ask them. Put the onus on the child on how they're going to persevere through mistakes and still accomplish their goal. In history or English, get them to take different perspectives and understand that in any story, there are different perspectives. Get them to understand how conflict happens. Get them to understand conflict resolution. Get them to understand that at the source of any conflict are emotions. I think these are some examples to begin with. We have a question here about, at what age do you let children focus on what they're good at? When should you force them not to be masters at math and history and literature, and maybe let them follow sports or maybe something else that they're interested in? You know, this is a complex question, and thank you for asking this. Honestly, I'm not sure I have the answer to it, because I definitely see value in all children learning some skills of all subjects, some math skills, some history skills, some English skills, because each of these subjects can teach us cognitive skills that will serve us throughout our lives. So I definitely see some value in those skills being taught through these subjects. But to your question of at what age do we let them focus, and I think you mean at what age do we let them focus entirely on sports and not on these subjects? That's really a call that, perhaps you as a family will have to take. All I can say is that right from when a child is born, make sure that there is at least some focus on what the child is interested in. You know, the child is not you. You are the parent. The child doesn't belong to you. The child is not owned by you. So let's not pretend that we're going to be able to dictate how or what they do. Let's recognize that they are their own person. They're just a younger and a shorter person, but they're a person with their unique interests and tastes, just like you. And there needs to be at least some focus on making sure that their interests and their hobbies are taken care of. We have a question here about parents are at a loss to handle kids studying at home. What is your advice to parents? This is a question that's actually come up in each of my sessions this past week. So thank you for bringing it up again, because clearly this is something that people are dealing with. And parents are at a loss Parents are at a loss to handle kids studying at home. So I need to unpack this question. Handle kids. What does that mean? Uh, do you need are we looking at how do we handle their boredom? How do we help them stay focused? How do we get them to expend their energy because they're not able to go play outside? I'm not sure what the question means, but I can try addressing each of these three that I just said. If your child is bored, come up with interesting stuff to do. Play games. Tell each other stories. As a family, watch a movie together. Let your child play games on their own for a while. Get them interested in a novel. It's okay if they're on social media for a while. It's completely normal and acceptable for teenagers to be on their phone for a while. So there are lots of things for boredom, right? Develop a new hobby, start painting, start singing, try learning a new instrument, try following a new blogger, learn a new skill, join one of the edtech platforms, take a new course. I'm doing that. I'm learning a fair few things to solve the boredom problem. Now, if your child is having trouble staying focused on studies, that's a different problem. Focus requires goal setting first and foremost, right? So help your child set goals for the day, and check in with them at the end of the day as to how many of those they achieved, and make those goals specific, right? So not like I'm gonna study history today. That's not a goal. A goal is specific. I'm gonna study 3 pages of the 3rd chapter in my history book by 1 p.m. today, and I'm going to make notes of at least 1 page long by that time. That is a goal. It's specific, it's measurable, it's time bound. So that's number one. Help your child set goals and check in with them at the time they say, and ask them, were you able to accomplish your goal or not? If they weren't, again, don't be hard on them. Ask them, all right, let's take a look. What happened? Is there some support you need? And then you might find, the child was actually distracted and went on social media and wasted 3 hours, which is when you want to tackle the second problem of focus, right? Which is avoiding distractions. So that is the next problem of focus, and you can come up with strategies on how to avoid distractions. One simple strategy that I as an adult use, and it's crazy because I get distracted a lot, is like I literally just like put my phone in the cupboard where I can't see it, and I won't see the notifications, and for 2 hours I will just keep it there and I'll focus on my work. So you can come up with these strategies as a family on how to avoid distractions. I'm forgetting the third thing that I was going to talk about, but let's see, we have some more comments. How do you make children to be more self-reliant and learn directly from books rather than being spoon-fed by teachers? Well, so first of all, my question is, how old is your child? At different ages, children need different kinds of support. As you can imagine, a 5-year-old is not going to be able to read on their own and be self-reliant, but a 15-year-old will be. So the first question is, how old is your child? And assuming that your child is 10 years or older, where they can read and write on their own and can, take content from books on their own, then how do you get them to be more self-reliant? I would say set goals, what we just talked about. Get them to set goals for their own learning. Children have to, after the age of 10, learn that they are in the driver's seat of their learning. They alone can control and navigate how fast they learn, how deeply they learn, and so put the responsibility of that on them. Stop hounding them as parents. It's not going to work. It's not going to work for long, at least. And number two, for helping them be self-reliant, is celebrate their self-reliance every time you see it. So if you see that they set a goal and they actually achieved it by bringing in their full focus and avoiding all distractions, celebrate it. Notice it. Tell them that you notice it. It means so much to a child to be noticed for the effort they're putting in the right direction. And thirdly, I would say, again, if they're struggling with it, ask them what they need. Usually, I've been a teacher. I've taught children in elementary school. I've taught children in middle school. Children can articulate what they need. All they need is you to ask. They need you to ask, and they need you to genuinely care to hear their response. And they will tell you what they need. So they will say, I'm not interested in this subject, and so I'm not able to focus. And as a parent, when you hear that, you now know what the problem is. They're not interested. And then you can talk about, okay, why is it that you're not interested? What can we do to make this interesting? Is there something we can do? If this book is not interesting you, maybe we can watch a video on this topic first and then get you interested. There are a lot of strategies you can do once you know what the problem is. All right. And thank you. I have a lot of comments here saying that the examples are helpful. Thank you so much. I think that's about it. This has been a fabulous session, all of you. Thank you so much for your questions and your participation. It is absolutely my pleasure to be talking about this topic. And we at the Center for Social Emotional Learning thrive on these questions, on the interest that parents and teachers and all of you are taking in this subject, because this is the need of the hour. Our children are not being heard. They're not being acknowledged, and their needs are, they're completely, for the most part, not even noticed. Especially the emotional and social needs. So thank you so much for being interested in this topic and coming up with your full participation. I'm really grateful for all of you, and I'm grateful for fomonomore for giving us this platform to have a discussion on this. And it's a Sunday night and we're talking about this. So, what could be happier? What could be more encouraging for us as a society, that we think this is a conversation that's worthy of our Sunday night prime time? This is beautiful. So thank you so much. And do follow fomonomore for great content. This is a time to really, really be positive and share the skills and expertise we all have. And there's a lot of it on fomonomore. So please do join. I will be back here tomorrow talking specifically about integrating social emotional learning in textbooks. Now that's an interesting topic. Thank you so much. Bye.